The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm amber glow over the naval base, where the highest ranks gathered in the mess hall, a place usually filled with laughter and camaraderie. But tonight, an unusual tension hung in the air. Admiral Harris was known for his legendary missions and his no-nonsense attitude, yet despite the weight of his responsibilities, he enjoyed the rare moments of humor with his fellow officers. Marcus Reed stood at the edge of the room, a man whose weathered face told stories of hardship and resilience. He was a single father raising his young daughter on his own after returning from 2 grueling tours in Afghanistan. The quiet strength in his eyes was unmistakable, yet he rarely spoke of his past. Marcus had a way of blending into the background which made the Admiral all the more curious. Tonight, the Admiral decided to lighten the mood with a joke directed at Marcus, a man he barely knew. He sauntered over with a smirk and asked Marcus what his call sign was, expecting a playful answer to break the ice. Marcus looked up slowly, his gaze steady and unwavering. The room seemed to hold its breath as Marcus opened his mouth and said, "Iron Ghost." The words landed heavy like a stone sinking into still water. Silence fell over the room, and even the hum of the ceiling fan seemed to stop. The Admiral froze as though time itself had stopped in that moment. For a fleeting second, everyone felt the invisible weight of something unspoken. Marcus was not just a soldier or a single dad, he was a man whose past was carved in shadows and secrets. The Admiral sensed a story lurking beneath the surface, something too dangerous or painful to voice aloud. His mind raced, recalling whispered rumors about a mission that vanished without explanation, a team that never returned. Marcus's call sign had suddenly connected the dots in a way no one dared to speak about yet. The room remained still, and the Admiral swallowed hard, unsure whether to ask more or to retreat into silence. Marcus glanced away, his eyes clouded with memories that threatened to spill over, but he held them back. The tension between the 2 men was palpable, like a storm about to break, and the Admiral realized that tonight was no ordinary night. It was the beginning of a story that would change everything they thought they knew about courage, sacrifice, and the true meaning of brotherhood. The room seemed to hold its breath as Marcus's words echoed silently through the heavy air around them. Iron Ghost was not just a name, it was a legacy, a warning and a memory all tangled into one. The Admiral sat motionless, his usually sharp eyes clouded with a mix of disbelief and dread that no rank or medal could mask. He remembered stories told in hushed tones in briefing rooms locked away from prying eyes, the kind of tales that made even the most hardened soldiers shiver in their boots. The name Iron Ghost was whispered among the elite few who knew the truth about what happened behind enemy lines during the war, and Marcus's voice had suddenly shattered the fragile calm of the room like a gunshot in the night. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat as the Admiral's gaze bore into him, searching for something deeper, something unspoken. But Marcus was guarded his face, a mask, hiding scars, both seen and unseen. He had spent years carrying the burden of that mission alone, a mission that had nearly cost him everything, including the life of his closest friend and fellow soldier. The mission had been top secret, a black operation designed to infiltrate a fortified enemy compound to gather intelligence that could turn the tide of the war. But things went wrong from the start. Communications were lost. The team was cut off, and what happened next was shrouded in mystery. The Admiral remembered the faces of the men he had lost that day, men who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and pain. The military brass had written it off as a failed operation, but the truth was far more complex and dark. The name Iron Ghost had never been officially recorded yet. It had become a symbol among those who understood the true cost of war, and Marcus was living proof of that hidden truth. The Admiral's fingers twitched as memories flooded back a classified operation that had been buried deep in the archives. He had never spoken of it publicly. But here was Marcus, sitting in front of him, a ghost from the past who had somehow survived and now carried the weight of it all. The atmosphere in the room grew heavier as Marcus's eyes locked with the Admiral's, his voice dropping lower as he prepared to reveal fragments of what had happened beyond the battlefield where silence was the loudest sound. Marcus spoke of nights filled with shadows moving like phantoms of death, of lost comrades, whispering secrets that no one else was meant to hear, the terror of being hunted by an unseen enemy, and the crushing loneliness of survival. He described the fear that clung to the air, the adrenaline that numbed the pain, and the haunting image of his friend falling beside him with a final whispered plea that Marcus had carried in his heart ever since. As Marcus spoke, the Admiral's face tightened. The years of military discipline faltered, giving way to a rare glimpse of vulnerability. The story was more than a mission. It was a testament to the human spirit and the invisible wounds carried by those who had been to the edge of hell and back. The Admiral realized that Marcus's call sign, Iron Ghost, was not just a label, but a declaration of the invisible scars and untold sacrifices that defined him. But before Marcus could finish his story, a sudden and deafening explosion shattered the fragile stillness, sending shockwaves through the base and throwing everyone into chaos. The ground trembled, and dust filled the air as alarms blared and men scrambled to find cover. The Admiral and Marcus instinctively ducked behind a nearby table, their eyes scanning for the source of the blast. In that moment, the past and present collided, the secrets they shared drowned out by the roar of destruction. The Admiral's mind raced with questions: who had attacked the base? And why was this linked to the dark mission that Marcus had barely begun to describe? Or was there a new enemy lurking in the shadows, ready to strike again? As the smoke slowly cleared, the Admiral saw Marcus's face illuminated by the flickering lights, their shared silence broken only by the distant sounds of chaos. The Admiral knew this was only the beginning, and that the true fight was far from over. The Iron Ghost had returned not just as a memory, but as a force to be reckoned with, and the Admiral realized that the line between friend and foe was thinner than ever. The explosion had left the base rattled and everyone on edge. But in the eye of the storm, Marcus and the Admiral found themselves drawn together by the weight of secrets too heavy to carry alone. The Admiral's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, piecing together the fragments of Marcus's story and the implications of the attack that still echoed through the halls. Marcus's voice was steady as he began to unravel the truth behind the call sign. Iron Ghost. A story that was as much about survival as it was about betrayal and sacrifice. Marcus spoke of a covert operation that had been buried deep in classified files, an assignment so sensitive that only a handful of people even knew it existed. The mission had been designed to infiltrate a heavily guarded enemy compound to extract critical intelligence that could end the war quickly. But as soon as the team crossed enemy lines, everything went wrong. Their communications were severed, their extraction point compromised, and they were forced to survive in hostile territory with limited supplies and no backup. The Admiral remembered the reports that never made it to the press, the official statements that painted the mission as a failure with no survivors. Yet Marcus was here alive and bearing the name Iron Ghost, a symbol of the team's ghost-like existence hidden from the world. Marcus described how the team had to fight not only enemy soldiers, but also the creeping doubt and fear within their own ranks. The pressure had been immense, and the cost had been higher than anyone could imagine. The memory of his closest friend dying in his arms haunted him, still a casualty of a betrayal that had come from within their own command. As Marcus detailed the betrayal, the Admiral's face grew pale. The notion that someone in their own ranks had set them up was a truth that had been whispered but never confirmed until now. The realization that the explosion at the base might be connected to the same enemy who had betrayed Marcus's team sent a chill down the Admiral's spine. The pieces were falling into place, a deadly game of espionage and revenge that had stretched across years and continents, just as Marcus began to explain how he had uncovered evidence of the betrayal and was working to expose it. The base's emergency lights flickered, and the sound of distant gunfire erupted outside. The Admiral grabbed his radio and called for reinforcements, but the lines were dead. A coordinated attack was underway, and the enemy was closer than anyone had feared. Marcus and the Admiral exchanged a glance, their unspoken understanding sealing their alliance in the face of danger. The corridor outside grew darker as power faltered, and the sound of footsteps echoed closer. The Admiral reached for his sidearm and motioned for Marcus to follow as they moved through the shadows toward the command center where crucial information was stored. But the base was no longer a safe haven. It had become a battleground, and every step was a risk. The weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future pressed heavily on them both. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, a shadowy assailant, armed and dangerous. The Admiral fired, but the attacker vanished into the maze of corridors, leaving behind only questions and the unmistakable feeling that the enemy was watching. Their every move, Marcus's heart pounded as memories of that fateful mission flooded back, the feeling of being hunted and the desperate fight to stay alive. The Admiral and Marcus pressed onward, determined to secure the data that could reveal the traitor and bring justice to those who had paid the ultimate price. The tension was palpable, the air thick with anticipation as they navigated the labyrinthine base, their every move shadowed by unseen threats. The Admiral realized that the story of Iron Ghost was far from over, and that the true battle was just beginning. The chaos within the base was relentless, alarms blaring, fires smoldering, and the sound of distant footsteps echoing like ghosts through the empty halls. The Admiral and Marcus moved with calculated urgency, each step bringing them closer to the command center, where the answers lay hidden. But the enemy was relentless, and shadows seemed to shift in every corner. They could feel the weight of unseen eyes tracking their every move, as if the building itself was alive and determined to keep its secrets buried. Deep, Marcus glanced at the Admiral, a silent understanding passing between them. The past had collided with the present, and they were now bound by a mission far greater than themselves. The data Marcus carried was more than proof of betrayal. It was a key that could unlock the truth and bring down those who had used their own soldiers as pawns in a deadly game. The Admiral tightened his grip on his weapon, knowing that failure was not an option, not when the stakes were so high. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps grew louder and closer. A squad of hostile operatives emerged from the shadows, weapons trained on them. The Admiral reacted instantly, firing with precision, while Marcus ducked behind a pillar returning fire. The hallway became a war zone, bullets ricocheting off metal walls and sparks flying as the two men fought side by side. Despite the danger, their movements were synchronized, a testament to their shared experience and unspoken trust. In the midst of the firefight, Marcus managed to push forward, dragging the Admiral along toward the command center. The doors loomed ahead, a last barrier between them and the truth. But as they reached the entrance, a figure stepped into their path, a shadowy woman with a cold smile and eyes that held secrets as deep as the ocean. She was the ghost in the machine, the architect of betrayal, the one who had turned friend against friend and set the wheels of destruction in motion. The Admiral recognized her instantly, the intelligence officer who had vanished years ago, presumed dead, but now revealed as the mastermind behind the attack. Marcus felt a surge of anger and betrayal, but also a fierce determination to end this once and for all. The woman's voice was calm and chilling as she taunted them, revealing fragments of her plan and the reasons behind the betrayal. But before she could finish, the Admiral lunged forward, A struggle ensued, fierce and desperate in the confined space. The battle was intense and brutal. The woman fought with the cunning of a seasoned operative, but the Admiral and Marcus were fueled by years of pain and loss. As they grappled the truth, spilled out about covert alliances and hidden agendas that had corrupted the very heart of their military, Marcus realized that the name Iron Ghost was not just a symbol of survival, but a beacon of resistance against the darkness that threatened to consume them all. With a final push, the Admiral disarmed the woman and secured her hands, but the danger was far from over. The command center was rigged to self-destruct, a last desperate measure to erase the evidence and bury the truth forever. The Admiral and Marcus exchanged a grim look, knowing that escaping alive was now a race against time. They sprinted through the corridors as explosions rocked the base, flames licking at the walls and debris falling around them. The chaos was deafening, and every second counted. The Admiral's years of training kicked in, guiding them through the safest route. But Marcus's mind was on his daughter, the life waiting for him beyond the smoke and fire. The thought gave him strength and a fierce hope that no matter what happened, the truth would survive. As they reached the exit, the final blast threw them to the ground, the world shaking around them, but they pulled themselves up and ran into the night, escaping the burning base behind them. The Admiral looked at Marcus, his expression a mixture of respect and relief, knowing that the Iron Ghost had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the fight was not over. The shadowy figure had slipped away in the chaos, and the real enemy was still out there waiting in the quiet aftermath. Marcus and the Admiral stood together beneath the stars, a new alliance forged in fire and blood. They both knew that the war they had fought was only the beginning, and that the true battle for truth and justice was just beginning. The Iron Ghost was no longer a ghost at all, but a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, courage and loyalty could light the way forward. The night had settled around the scorched remnants of the base, the air thick with the acrid scent of smoke and burning metal. Marcus Reed stood beside Admiral Harris, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of distant fires. The silence between them was heavy, loaded with unspoken words and memories, too painful to voice, yet the victory they had won felt fragile, like a thin thread holding back an abyss. Marcus's thoughts drifted to his daughter, the small beacon of light waiting for him far from the shadows of war and betrayal. His heart ached with the weight of the past, but burned with a fierce determination to protect the future. The Admiral placed a steady hand on Marcus's shoulder, a silent gesture of solidarity forged through blood and sacrifice. Their alliance was no longer just about survival. It was about justice and exposing the rot that had festered within their own ranks. The intelligence officer, the architect of the betrayal, had been captured, but the Admiral knew she was just one piece of a larger puzzle, a covert network with tendrils reaching deep into the military and government had orchestrated the attack, the cover-ups, and the deaths of countless soldiers, including Marcus's team. The fight to bring them down was only beginning, and the price of failure would be catastrophic as dawn crept over the horizon, casting pale light over the devastated base. A secure transport arrived, ready to take Marcus and the Admiral to a classified facility where the evidence could be analyzed and plans formulated. Marcus felt a surge of urgency, knowing that every moment counted. The truth was a dangerous weapon, and there were those who would stop at nothing to bury it forever. Inside the transport, the Admiral briefed Marcus on the next steps, a covert operation to dismantle the network piece by piece, using the data recovered from the command center. Marcus listened intently, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, but also a renewed sense of purpose. The call sign Iron Ghost was no longer just a name. It was a legacy to be honored and a mission to be completed. Suddenly, the transport lurched violently, alarms blared, and the vehicle skidded to a halt. The lights flickered, revealing a squad of armed mercenaries surrounding them. The network had eyes everywhere, a reminder that the enemy was closer than they dared imagine. Marcus and the Admiral exchanged quick glances, their training kicking in with lethal precision. They fought back with fierce determination, their movements fluid and deadly. But the mercenaries were relentless and better equipped than anyone expected. The battle inside the transport was fierce, and desperate bullets tore through the metal walls and sparks flew as hand-to-hand combat erupted. Marcus felt the sting of a graze on his arm, but pushed forward, driven by adrenaline and the knowledge that failure was not an option. The Admiral took down 2 assailants before a third caught him off guard, forcing Marcus to step in and save him with a swift and brutal move that left no doubt about his skill and resolve. With the mercenaries subdued but not defeated, the transport's communication systems were compromised and they were cut off from backup. The Admiral and Marcus knew they had to escape quickly, before more enemies arrived. Using the terrain and their training, they orchestrated a daring escape under the cover of darkness, slipping into the dense forest surrounding the base. The trees swallowed them whole, offering brief sanctuary but also new dangers lurking in the shadows. As they moved deeper into the wilderness, the Admiral revealed to Marcus the full scope of the conspiracy, a plan to destabilize the military chain of command and seize power using black operations and false flag attacks. The network had infiltrated the highest levels of government and the military, and their reach extended beyond anything Marcus had imagined. The Admiral's voice was grim but resolute, knowing that the only way to stop them was to expose them to the world. Marcus's mind raced with the implications. The betrayal had cost lives, destroyed families, and threatened the very fabric of the nation, but he refused to be a victim. He vowed to fight not just for his own survival, but for the memory of his fallen comrades and the safety of his daughter. The Iron Ghost was no longer a symbol of loss, but a beacon of hope and resistance. As dawn broke, they reached a safe house, a hidden outpost where trusted allies awaited with communications, equipment, and reinforcements. The Admiral immediately contacted the command center and began transmitting the classified data gathered from the base.